It's time to down tools for a bit. Welcome to the ToolShed, the influential podcast for anyone and everyone involved in the building industry. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the ToolShed Podcast. If this is your first time on the ToolShed, what you will notice is what we're always trying to do is find people and platforms and tools and philosophies and ideas that can help people in the building industry improve their experience, improve their business, improve the level of service, the enjoyability of running a business. So we're always looking for people that can offer us ideas to help us move in that direction. Today I'm going to be speaking with James Hickey from JHC Consulting. And before we do, I just want to remind you to, if you haven't already taken the Builder Scorecard, just click the link in the description and answer a few questions. And what it will do is help identify, particularly in your business, what we might call the roadblock issue. So that generally every business has some form of issue that is quite difficult to identify because you're so close to the coalface. Taking the Builder Scorecard, it allows you to identify what that issue might be for you, and you'll receive some supporting material in your inbox very, very quickly to help you identify what you need to do to fix that. When you do fix it, it will eliminate a whole raft of other problems. So it's a great way to get moving forward fast. So as I said, speaking to James Hickey from JHC Consulting. James, how are you today? Where do we find you? Where are you in, I'm assuming, Australia?
Yeah, so one, doing well. Two, Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. So Blue Mountains is home.
Played golf up there. Used to live in Sydney and played golf at Blackheath and a few other places up there. So
lovely.
Know the place well.
Other world, love it.
Lovely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
great views and fresh air up there. Fantastic. So, as I said in the intro, we're always looking for people with philosophies and ideas and experience and platforms and all that sort of stuff to be able to help people in the building industry overcome, and in my world, most of the issues are unnecessary issues in a business. Many of them are of our own creation. And so that's obviously in your wheelhouse as well. Love to find out about the backstory. So how did you end up doing what you were doing? What's your relationship to the construction industry and what caused you to get involved in this sort of thing?
All right, speed date. So started up carpenter and joiner. So carpenter and joinery in the cottage industry, so very second story additions. That's pretty much where I cut my teeth. After I got my trade, started in project management, quickly realized that I had a knack for solving problems of a greater scale, especially in relation to business. So I went from project management quickly to general management. With that, I then started managing larger construction companies. And from there, also then launched into more of a global role. So one of the clients, one of my jobs that I was running was a general manager for, and they had an international option after there was a big international buyout. So then I was heading up change management for them overseas as well. So that was really cool. Able to bring construction knowledge linked with business knowledge and be able to basically, for the first time, start to link into systems. And that's where a bit of a spin-off takes in my career. So very much I believe that businesses are built on three pillars based on my experience. One, good vision. You've got to have good vision. You've got to know who you are. And from a tradesman's point of view, most people get the tools. They understand the skills. They're great at what they do. What they might not have is the ability to link it into the other key items, which is around the good people and good systems. And that's where pretty much, if I see something going wrong, it's probably because of one of the three. You come across companies who have got great systems, like they've got a great offering, but they don't really have a clear articulation of what they actually value in market. So things fall down. They could have amazing people and amazing vision, but everyone's tripping over themselves because they don't have good systems. So during my life, sort of progressive from trade through to P&L management to people management, I got into that systems pillar. And quickly after scaling a couple of construction companies, got in managing my own firm. And so I specialize in helping founders, construction-related companies, pretty much make sure they've got those three things in play. Because like you said, if one of those things are failing, everything sort of falls off the wheels and they're normally first world problems by our own creation.
Yeah, it's the word systems is thrown around a lot, and it's one of my beliefs that well, from a statistical point of view, we've always found that businesses that do have systems, they don't even necessarily have to have a fantastic product, but if they've got systems, they tend to be more financially successful than businesses that don't. And so that, I guess, that franchise style business, not necessarily a franchise business, but because they're based on systems and processes, they tend to be more stable, more successful than the garden variety business.
Looking for that
business.
repeatability. If it's not repeatable, it's a one-off, it's a fluke.
Yeah.
So you've got to make it repeatable. Otherwise, your quality drops. You get one great client. It might be a success story to why you started the business, but unless you can do that time and time again, it's just going to be a fire in the pan.
Yeah. So what is it? Because we sort of speak to and work with a bunch of builders and generally our specific clients are residential builders, custom home builders. And there doesn't seem to be there's perhaps an awareness of the need for systems, but there doesn't seem to be a commitment to the implementation and creation of the systems. What do you think it is the resistance there? Why do they tend to prioritize working in the business rather than on it? What's your thoughts there?
I guess for me, it was the paradigm when I realized that systems, tech systems, financial systems were the same as my tools. Like, how am I going to deliver a service? How am I going to deliver the business itself? And yes, you've learnt your craft, and yes, you've got to be able to build a great product, and it's got to be, to the trade. But unless you've got the ability to actually systemize it and have that profitability oversight, understand your resources, and it's especially when you get a client or a trade who's grown, might be a single trade, might bring on a certain couple of close people into his business. But as soon as they get to that ability to scale beyond what someone can record in their head, that's when things fall apart, and that's when systems really come into their own. So to answer your question, like for me, it's when it gets to a point where you cannot remember everything. And if you don't have systems in play, get ready for chaos, because you're going to have false starts. You're going to get the first oh no moment when you promise something to somebody. They call you up and say, well, and you go, Shiza, I forgot. and that's the key item. Like, I can remember the first time that happened to me, and that's when I realized that systems are the key to making sure that you don't drop the ball. And back when I started, now getting closer to 50, it was just a notepad in my pocket. That was my first system. It was repeatable. I was supervising. I was in the project management side of it. And I was just writing notes on the fly, and I would tick them off at the end of the day. And that was good for that role. But then as you get more responsibility, multiple trades, payables, receivables, getting material delivered on site on time, running multiple projects at the same time, it gets too much for someone to actually comprehend. And that's where systems, you have to have them.
So somebody buys into what we're saying, got to have them. They don't really have any. What are your suggestions as to identify where to start in your specific business to start to capture and build systems? Because I have seen it in the past where people go, yeah, systems, and they start building all sorts of systems all over the place. Doesn't really change anything. So there has to be some sort of approach where the necessity for a system kind of presents itself in a way that when you create that system, it gives you leverage, it gives you value, it creates an improvement in the business. What are your thoughts on how to find that, how to identify it?
I love the systems part of it, linking into the client journey, the client workflow. So every time I meet someone new, we actually map out how does a client go through your actual business from start to finish. First time you talk to them, how do they get engaged with what you've got to offer? What's valuable about you compared to, there are hundreds of other builders out there competing against you? What makes you unique? So how have you captured them? So that's got to be systematized, because you can't ad hoc just start selling random stuff. Then you go through to how do you quote it? How do you get those quotes approved? So we just follow the client journey all the way from start to finish. And that's the key part. So from our point of view, I meet guys and girls, companies who have been established for 5, 10, 20 years. And they either are having a lot of false starts and getting frustrated, so they find someone like us, or they potentially have grown too fast. So potentially they're on the verge of insolvency. So how do I actually catch up with this beast that I've created? Or they might just have a concept that might be a great tradesman in isolation, but how do I turn that into actually business knowledge? Because we all know, like, we learn some great things from TAFE, we learn some great things from our, masters from the apprentice side of things. But when it relates into the business management, it's rare that that gets passed on to us. And then how to actually operationalize that. So it just comes down to workflows. We map it out. We break down who's responsible in the business for that task. We then also look at how is that delivered? How is that serviced from a systems point of view? And then that's where I go out to market. And pretty much a huge part of the conversation today is promoting a company called WorkflowMax, because as a value out to market, they have so much functionality that captures all of what I'm talking about end to end, from the initial lead coming in to the quotes being sent out, the quote approvals, how then am I going to send it out to my subcontractors or allocate it to my staff to make sure that they're managing those tasks? And then how do I have oversight of potentially hundreds of jobs happening at the same time if I'm maybe in a remedials, a rapid repair style business, or really complex jobs where I could be managing, projects up to $4 million. And, the amount of materials back and forwards, purchase orders, receiving of purchase orders, understanding everything outside of what I normally find is this cash in bank style analogies, like, have you got money in the bank? Yes, I'm okay. But how much money have you got in the bank? And can you actually fund all the projects if you needed to right now? And most people can't answer that question.
Mm. So I want to circle back around in a minute to WorkflowMax and sort of unpack that a little bit. But one of the things you said is that we start off with the client journey. When you're working with a client, you work through their client journey and sort of do it in a logical way. And one of the things that I want your thoughts on, because I find that working with many of these builders, when they start to want to systematize, they tend to focus on the things that will free them up personally first. And I'm not 100% sure that's the right approach from a customer experience point of view. And sort of part B of that same question is when you start to systemize things, I want your thoughts on systemizing the parts that are normally humanized. So the face-to-face, the communications, the conversations. I find that many, particularly of the younger generation, tend to want to systemize that, get that off their plate, and they tend to be going for more efficiency rather than effectiveness, which, in my opinion, is an error. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on part A and part B of that question.
Part B first, I think.
Okay.
You don't have business without people. So yes, you could have the most efficient, slick system, but unless you've got a relationship, people buy relationships. That's humanity. So unless you can actually humanize your process and not make it this so you follow the box, you're going to lose clients. You'll lose clients quickly. And we've all been on that customer support style scenario where we've got a bugbear. We try and contact the company in question and we get put into some type of automated process. We hang up damn quick. But they've lost us from day one. So I would say, to your last part, if you're just looking at efficiency only from a systems point of view, not seeing how it can actually make you better to be better client facing and add value and create more relationships, you're starting off on the wrong path. You've got to have that to create relationships. Otherwise, it's just going to fall apart. Back to the first part, and it's a key part of sort of everyone's growth journey. So, and it really depends on the psychology also. So a lot of when I'm getting founders who are getting to the stage where they need to start getting beyond themselves. So I need to hire my first operations manager or my first sales manager. A key part is really profiling what you're good at, what do you actually enjoy doing. And I find business owners are very much set into two buckets. They either love sales, so we look at how to get them a support GM or a support ops guy, and they're still out there winning the client, getting the rapport, and really going hard on that growth to support the new cost that they're bringing into their business. And the other part is they might be a bit more of an introvert. They might be the technical person. They love the doing, but they don't know how to actually go out there and get work. So when something's gifted to them, or referrals, which is really common for that type of persona, they'll be recommended because they just are great at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But then there might be more limited referrals coming in, so their pipeline starts diminishing, and they're going, okay, so how am I going to actually keep this momentum going? They need someone who's more out there from a sales perspective, still understanding their value, selling the right brand, selling the right product. But it's really those two items to how can you systematize it to the point where the boring administration work's happening behind the scenes because you've automated that, but it's enabling your people to get out there and actually serve your clients. And if there's something in a process that, and you see, I've got one client at the moment, they're so engineered, they're so process driven, that's actually paring back a lot of their systems and a lot of their processes at the moment, because we want them to be servicing their clients, because that's what made them successful in the first place. So how to get back to that, but still mitigate your risk, make sure the ball's bouncing from the quote to the quote approval going out to your purchase orders, receipts coming back in, managing your finances and your cash flow on the monthly payment cycles, and then just keep going on and on and on.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're always trying to bring you information that's going to make your life as a builder much easier. So give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. Yeah. It's a funny process. Like when somebody starts their business initially, there isn't a whole lot of administration to do because there aren't any or many customers. So they have a lot of client-facing time and they're talking to people and get their first client over the line. If you're talking about a builder or whatever, small job starts to get bigger, what have you. And the thing that got them started, they tend to deprioritize and they start to be sucked into the technical work, from the E-Myth, Michael Gerber's version, the technician, that's their safe space. That's where they're comfortable. And now they've put in a place where they're uncomfortable. They need to make marketing decisions. They need to come up with some sort of marketing strategy, leadership, better communications, as you're saying, systems and procedures, which is uncomfortable for them. Even the management of finances can be uncomfortable for them. They don't want to know. What's your secret sauce, if you have any, to be able to get that technician who their happy, comfortable place is in that technical work, but that they need to broaden their horizons and start to put effort and educate themselves in all of these other parts? How do you get them out of that comfort zone into this place where they're uncomfortable that is necessary to be addressed for their business to be resilient and successful?
Start with the vision, start with that end in mind. I know it's used a lot, but unless someone understands the end game and actually why they're in the game they're in, find out their joys, what makes them happy, some psychology aspects of that. But it's really around what do they want out of the business. And there's some people, and there's nothing wrong with it, if they're happy being small. They could have a certain family dynamic where, the kids are going to school, they love being the sports dad. If that's your values, build a business around supporting that structure. Go for it. If you're wanting to take on the industry and you see a market where you might be working with a designer, you love what that person's doing, that there's a market for it, you want to go that, grow it. But know yourself first and know what you're trying to achieve out of the business. And that's what I'll say is, if you don't know that, you're just going to have a whole bunch of crying and messy states, and you're going to get into a situation where, even myself over my career, you think you want something, and when you're there standing there, you go, do I really want this? And you've got to question it. So I'd say just know yourself first. And my job and your job in that scenario, because we do see it, someone might be saying they want something, but their actions aren't aligned with their intent. And if that's not in sync, something's not going to go right. So my first step in that scenario is really trying to make sure people understand what they want. And that goes back to that vision part of the triangle, because unless you've got that very clear to yourself and to people around you, especially your team, if they're confused about what they're doing and what's the purpose for it, they're going to be second guessing what they're doing at the same time, even if you've found the right people and you've got the right systems.
It's such a big part of the mental gymnastics for a successful business is understanding what that vision is or what your purpose is. And again, just love your thoughts or how you approach it when you're dealing with somebody in that space that you just mentioned there, and their actions aren't aligned with their mouth, with what they're saying. My suspicion is that it's a question that we don't ask ourselves very often. What do I really want? Who do I want to become? What do I want to achieve? And when it is asked of you by a coach or a consultant or somebody helping you with your business, maybe you feel a little silly not knowing, so you'll make some shit up just to answer the question. But do you have a process that where you'll continually be sort of checking back in with them? Because I think as they learn how to get a bit more control and become the master of their own destiny to a certain extent, I think they can potentially start to believe in a vision that maybe they were too either embarrassed or not confident enough to believe in when you first asked the question. So do you have a process where you're continually asking them to revisit that? Because it's such an incredible, important part of the process.
Definitely. At first, you take them on their word because you're just starting to learn who they are.
Yeah.
But I would say at that 3-month sort of, when you're checking back in, you've done the initial, okay, let's get your systems right. Okay, this is right for you. We've implemented that. Fantastic. So now let's focus on maybe marketing or some other aspect that relates to how you're going to grow to your end goal. They'll start their natural language. People can't hide it for long. You find out someone, 3 months for me is around that target where they'll be really saying what's in their heart. And that's the key thing, not necessarily what's in their head and what they think they should be saying, but they'll just naturally, in dialogue, when people are talking back and forward, people can't but hide their true nature of what they actually desire.
Yeah. Yeah. So they kind of get there eventually, is what you're saying, if you create the environment where the conversation continues.
Correct. You just keep circling back to those 3 things. All right, fantastic. Systems are in play. Brilliant. All right. So now, have we got the right people to facilitate it? Yes, fantastic. We've got your first leading hand, first supervisor. Awesome. Okay, now, how are you going to manage that supervisor? What are you going to be focusing on? So you're always reverting back to that client journey. So for me, I guess that is the process, getting back to that client journey. How are we facilitating this? So that way we don't also make the mistake where we're over-engineering it ourselves, creating first world problems that don't need to be created.
Yeah, that's. I laugh. It's not even funny, but I laugh because a big chunk of the problems that they'll come to you or us to overcome have been created by themselves. They're not actually environmental issues, that are out there. They're in here. But want to get back to WorkflowMax on this podcast. We talk a lot about different platforms that the builders use, people in the construction industry, to manage communications with their prospects, then their customers, then the projects, all of that sort of stuff. There is quite a few of them to choose from. What was it that drew you to WorkflowMax? What's the thing that lights you up about WorkflowMax compared to other platforms?
What is WorkflowMax? WorkflowMax is a powerful yet affordable job management solution that helps you handle everything from lead tracking and quoting to invoicing and cash flow management, seamlessly integrated with Xero. That means no more guessing where your money is going. Track job costs and profitability in real time. No more wasting hours on admin, automate workflows, invoices, and approvals. No more jumping between software. Handle everything in one place with powerful API integrations. And let's be honest, who doesn't want less admin and more time focusing on what really matters, getting the job done? That's why JHC Consulting Group partnered with WorkflowMax. WorkflowMax plus Xero provides full visibility on job profitability and cash flow. The platform bridges the gap between operations and finance, making it easier for SMEs to stay in control without drowning in admin.
Yeah, so I guess starting a couple of years back when I first discovered WorkflowMax, so I was helping a architectural firm scale. Fantastic company, great product, great founder, and really good to work with. But they were looking at their systems part of it because he's scaling, first good team members, good operations manager, but the operations manager couldn't have the oversight. It was getting too big. It wasn't in their head anymore. So how are we delegating? How are we actually tracking what's going on? little things like how much does our work cover us for? Do we need more sales? Are we too busy? Do I have not enough staff? Do I have too much staff? All those questions have been asked, and they asked me to review their systems first as part of their growth strategy. And they were using a system called WorkflowMax. I'd actually never seen it before a couple of years ago. And I'm always looking for a product that has the functionality boxes ticked. So if you can have something that's end to end, where I don't need to then have another system for this and another system for that and another system for this, and you're building a Frankenstein to try and get that end to end workflow from the client journey, that for me is my major tick box. It's got to capture, if I can get it from a lead, i.e., we're starting to date. I'm just now learning about what you want as a project. I can track that information. I can see how many of those I've got in my pipeline, how many of those are going to convert. Then I can start pricing them. I can manage my pricing, and all those things that I was talking about before, from quoting to costing to receipting your cost and your suppliers, to allocating it to your staff, to allocating resource and programming for your staff, and then being able to integrate into key systems around it. That's what I'm always looking for. And WorkflowMax ticks all those boxes. They are probably one of the most cost-effective solutions I've seen in market, and I get to play with a lot. And it is something that is for bang for buck. The amount of functionality in that box is huge. And for me, that's where, if I'm looking for someone, especially who's maybe 10 team members less, you're not going to get a better value product in market, because it does everything you need. If you are really looking for a niche specialty product that does some CAD design, or it does some more, structured item in regards to being able to schedule your staff or schedule your supply chain out in the market and do more response style work, there's other systems. But financially and from an end-to-end for the majority of business, it's going to facilitate that key thing, which most people don't understand when I first ask them, and probably yourself will find the same thing. What's your job profit? How are you actually managing that current job, that specific project? There's a lot of builders out there who, you hear it all the time, where we both hear it. Yeah, I'm not quite making money on this one, but I know I'm going to make it up on that one, or I'm making it up on this one. And they're, in their mind, they're playing Russian roulette with their job profitability, and they might not see it at first, because when we first start systemizing clients, most understand cash and bank. That's, the first logic we get going out of school. How much money you got in the bank? Can I pay the bills? So most businesses are really good at that. But it's when they're managing multiple projects and they get to that scale, unless you understand that project profitability, your cash and bank is going to disappear really quickly. It's just not going to be there, because all of a sudden it just concatenates and compounds really quickly. So from a tech stack point of view, when I first saw WorkflowMax, I was surprised with how much functionality was actually in the box. And then when I looked at the price point, it's amazing, because something that would be $200 a month SaaS subscription from a WorkflowMax point of view is going to be tenfold that in some other systems out in market. And you would still have to come up with some type of workaround to mitigate some of the shortfalls that you don't get within this product. So that's the first part. It's got the functionality within their tech stack really, really well. Then I look at the next dimension. What can it bolt into? Because no system does everything. Unless you can have the money to spend $1 million and build your own, you're not going to get everything in one box. So looking at the key function of, this does job profitability, I can quote, I can do my leads, I can look at my staff management, I can look at my purchasing, I can get all that in one spot. Then you might link in HubSpot to look at, if you're really trying to go out there and you're not a relationship business, but you're more looking at, how do I get more leads in my funnel so people are coming towards me? You look at a CRM, you might bolt that into this. Most people in Australia use Xero as their financial tool.
Yep.
This automatically syncs to Xero. So with the native integration they've got, you switch it on, all your invoices created inside WorkflowMax automatically go to Xero. All your costings go onto Xero. You can see things on more a operational level, and you still need to see it. So sort of getting into finance language. In WorkflowMax, you can see your job profit, but in Xero, you get to see your gross profit and your net profit, but they're very, very different. So unless you understand, you might not be making the margin you thought in Xero, and you can't figure out why. And if you're running multiple projects, it's going to be impossible to figure out why unless you can track that job profitability. Yeah. So that's when they all start marrying together. And that's where, like I said, when I first saw it, my job was initially to see, do they keep WorkflowMax or do I find another system? And as soon as I sat down with the team, looked at how they were using it, the data points they could collect, we quickly decided that they were going to keep using it. But that's where the other skill for people like us in market is you can still have a great product, but unless you understand how that client flows through the product, you're just going to have a box on a shelf and it's just a waste of time. So that's where partners like myself and, there's partners around the world for WorkflowMax. Our jobs in that scenario is when we find a client that suits their product, it's how do we make sure they're getting the most return out of their investment in the product and keeping that client-facing aspect as well. Like you can't just have people sitting behind a screen while you're supposed to be out there building houses and, renovating projects.
Yeah. Your consultancy, James Hickey Consultancy or Consulting Group. What's the ideal client who I know that you sort of you look after a bunch of different people in the construction industry. So what are the type of businesses that are in your wheelhouse for your consultancy and what are the steps to be able to access you, have a conversation with you, find out whether your consultancy is the right fit for them?
Website's obviously the key, jhc.consulting. Target I love people who like to make a difference. I'm all about passion. I'm still about that relationship back and forward. So if I get someone that's coming to me and it's all about systems or it's all about sales, and I guess vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know that long term we're not going to be compatible because I'm about making sure that there's value across the whole supply chain. Trades are making money, you're making money, everyone's happy, you've got great product. I really look for someone who's out there for the right intentions. That just aligns with my values because I like helping people grow and that's where I get my kick. Since I don't have the ability to see houses go up anymore or, make a set of stairs, I had to find kicks in different ways. And for me, I love seeing people grow, people shine, their intention come to aligned action. And if I can play a part in linking that vision, the people and the systems all together, that's my wheelhouse. That's where I love to play. Founders, normally founder-led companies, it's normally someone who's got the vision. It's normally someone who's either made a couple of false starts, they've stuffed up on occasion and they're struggling, they're scratching their head. They want someone to bounce off. They want someone to come in and actually understand how do I actually get this happening. That's my normal clientele. And honestly, from a marketing point of view, most of it's word of mouth, most of it's referral, and I've grown organically myself that way. I've never really had to go out there and market. It's always been the fact that I really look after my clients and then vice versa, look after myself and we grow that way. And that's across construction. I'm also playing in renewable space after being a GM of a renewables company building wind turbines before. So I'm always in that construction related field, be it design related, physically swinging, you're having related building products or construction companies. But for me, it's how do I bring those three together? How do I get that spark in your brain? How do we make sure you understand what that is? How do we make sure we surround you with the right people who can deliver on it? And then the system, so there's the tools to make sure that actually activates everything that we discussed.
Yeah, perfect stuff. Just want to thank you for making yourself available to be on the podcast. As I said, we're always looking for people with those sort of philosophies and those sort of ideas to help the listener start to think about there is more to it than banging nails into wood. There's a lot of other skills. There's a lot of other mental gymnastics and challenges that we need to address to build a successful business. It's not just being a great technician. You've got to, be aware of the systems and even what systems and where not to apply a system, if you like, if it ruins the humanization of how we interact with our clients. So just wanted to say thanks for being on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. And I hope your audience get a kick out of it.
Thanks very much. So that's it for this episode of the podcast. I hope that got you thinking. If you want to have a conversation with James, the link to the website will be in the description. Reach out, have that conversation. If you're the right fit, happy days. There's a lot to be said by having somebody in your corner that is all about the passion and all about the big picture. It's not just some small facet of the business like more sales or more clients or things like that. So I love that philosophy. I hope this got you thinking about that. If you haven't filled out that the questionnaire, the Builder's Scorecard, the link is in the description. Really encourage you to do that. 90 seconds and you can get some really good feedback to help you move your business forward quite quickly in your inbox, pretty much straight away. As I said, that's it for this episode of the ToolShed. We'll be back with another episode of the ToolShed podcast. Before you know it, I'm Mick Hawes from Builders Business Black Belt. That is all. I'm out. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the ToolShed. If this podcast struck a chord with you, make sure you spread the word by sharing it with your mates in the building industry. We love your help to make the building industry better for everyone involved.